Hi friends, David here from Learn Stage Lighting, and today we're here in Onyx and at a waterfall. Not really at a waterfall. You can see my usual office behind me, though that's going to change soon. But we're going out to a waterfall. We did this last year, actually. You can check my video here, where we lit a waterfall, ShoShone Falls in Southern Idaho. And I have to thank, first of all, for sponsoring this video today, Southern Idaho Tourism. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. But what I want to talk about first and get into is what's in front of me, what I'm doing here, timecode programming in Onyx, and all of my best tips and tricks for making your life easy while doing it. And while I say that, I'm actually going to pull up one more app. So that being said, timecode programming can be intimidating. What is it, first of all? Well, to define it, excuse me, allergies. Oh man, nothing like some seasonal allergies. Okay, so timecode is, simply put, playing a track of time. Now, to begin there, a track of time is generally coded. You have a timecode track that is associated with either a piece of music or a video content, right? That's typically what we use in order to keep timecode. You've got this track, you've got video, you've got audio, maybe both, and it puts out itself, it plays itself, but then the device playing the video or audio often is generating timecode as well. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes there's a third device that generates the timecode, triggers the video or audio, and triggers the lighting. Regardless, we've got a time locked down to an audio track, in this case about 20 minutes worth, and we are going to have a show on a waterfall, ShoShone Falls in Southern Idaho, as noted. Okay, so first and foremost, they're sponsoring this video. Thanks a ton to ShoShone Falls. If you haven't ever thought about visiting Idaho, ShoShone Falls in Southern Idaho as a whole is outside of Boise, about 2 hours, I believe, from Boise, and about 3 hours from Salt Lake City if you're driving. That's super beautiful out there. If you've got a week, you want to get away, I can't recommend it enough. But enough of that. Let's talk about the show. So this is a show that's going to run this year, 2022, in May at some point. At the time of this recording, they don't have the dates totally solidified because it depends on when water is going to run nonstop on this waterfall, which is regulated by a dam. And that has to do with how much rainfall there is and when the salmon are going to run upstream, which changes every year. Turns out they don't read the calendar. Okay, so we've got a pretty simple show here. If I just get into it actually real quick, just get a couple cues in. Okay, so we have these lights. These lights are waterfall lights, and they're not focused. They look better in person than they do here in the visualizer. This is Capture, the 3D visualizer. They look a little bit better in person than they do here. They are made by a company called Stanley, which is a headlight manufacturer, but they also made the RGB color changing lights that are on Niagara Falls. So ShoShone Falls, they figured that out. They bought these lights. They're DMX controlled, so essentially we can control them like any other RGBW par. It's red, green, blue, and white. Okay, so we have 12 zones of those. There's actually 3 fixtures in each zone, but I'm only treating it as 12 lights, and so I've just patched it in Onyx, real simple, as 12 fixtures, and then they're each patched to 3 DMX addresses. Okay, so it's basically 12 fixtures. That's how we're working with it here, because it's 12 zones on each waterfall. Then we have some beams. So we've got these ADJ Hydro Beam X2s, awesome waterproof fixtures. If you do need waterproof fixtures, let us know at Learn Stage Lighting Gear. We've got a variety of different fixtures to choose from, beam lights, wash lights, you can get spots too. And depending on your application, these can be a great fit, but there might be something else that fits better. Okay, so they've got 6 of those. And so the basic gist of this show is light the waterfall, shoot the patterns around, shoot some gobos in the air, shoot some beams in the air, but mostly shoot them on the waterfall itself, as you'll see here. Okay, and then music, they use MusicBed to bring in music. They license that for their show, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to use it here, so I'm just going to mute it in this video just to make sure we're all within the terms of the license that they have. Okay, I will check with them on that though. So, how do I program a time-coded show in Onyx? Let's walk through a couple steps. First and foremost, I've got my my Onyx wing here, or NX2 control surface, whether you're using an NX2, an NX4, a wing, whatever, this will work. And there's a couple things I've done for this show. It's a relatively simple show. So on F keys, I've put a group for all my fixtures that I can select. Left and right waterfall lights, left and right beam lights. Nice and simple. Okay. The other keys that I use a lot, as you'll see, are update, and of course record cue number, and enter and numbers. And that's really it. Faders I don't really use, but I do keep my hand over here when I need to go backwards sometimes, when I've got timecode running and I see something and I want to go back to that previous cue to fix something. Okay, so what does this all look like? Well, time coding a show in Onyx, there's a new trick that I learned. I found just, one of those features that I didn't even know was in Onyx. Turns out it's undocumented. We need to fix that. And it is the CSV import. So it's in the cue list directory. And right here it says CSV import. Now, I always thought this button here was here for you to click and to bring in basically like maybe some cue lists from the show that you had archived, or I didn't know. Okay, I thought that's what it was for. Turns out it's actually for bringing in timecode marks and building a cue list off of it. So what that looks like is you can use a program like Reaper. A lot of people use Reaper, so I just grabbed it and used it here. And you go and you bring in your music track. So I've got my 20 minutes of music here. You first create a region. Again, this isn't a full tutorial. This is just kind of a quick, hey, here's what I did. You create a region, and then you create timing marks, which are Shift M creates a timing mark. And you can name them. And you put those in, and I did this, I went through this probably 3 times. Not super precise, but fast. So first time, I dropped in like every musical change I heard, okay? Because you don't have to use every one of these marks to make a cue later. If there's extra ones, that's okay. But if there's a spot where you want a cue and then there's not one of these in there, it's easier to create it in Reaper here than to add it in later in Onyx. Not that it's not doable. It totally is. It's just easier to do it now. So you add all these in, you export them as a CSV file, and then you import it here, and you get a timecode cue list that appears if you built your file right. And it could be a little finicky. I noticed I had to make sure I created my region first in Reaper, then bring in the marks. And then it creates this cue list. Boom. And it's totally empty. Okay, so you click on it, you can go to like your cue list values, and it really will look just like this actually. But it's totally blank. It'll have all your cues in there that you had in Reaper. Every cue, it's going to have the name, the number, and the time code. Okay, so delay and fade time is going to be at the show default, but of course you can change those down the line, etc. So then what I began doing is just laying stuff down. So hitting my groups on my console, going ahead, backing up, etc. If I found something that I wanted to change, so let's actually just plug this in super quick. All right, so we get it plugged in, it's showing up, yep. Okay, so say I've got my beam fixtures here, and in this queue, I wanted to go and just bring them into full, pop in on my touch screen here, and put them somewhere. Put them in that position, done. I want to add this to my queue. I would go ahead and basically be playing my music here. You see that there? It moved ahead on its own because timecode follow is enabled. And then when I'm at the queue that I want to add this to, I hit update. It might not show any queue data here, but what's important is that this is selected. It's got the white box around it. It shows the queue list at the top. It says unassigned values will be merged into this particular queue list. So what that means basically is it'll only show up here in update if I had something for those parameters in those fixtures in that queue before. There was nothing in that queue for these fixtures for those parameters, so this will work perfectly fine. I can then hit enter, it will update. A few things I did here that made life easy. So I'm going through the show, right? And I would update a lot. Now, a lot of times you find yourself in a spot, like if I just clear here and pop ahead, you know, I would pop ahead and there would be a spot where things go on, off, on, off, on, off. Okay, so what I would do there is I would create whatever the hit would be for the on, and I would record it into this first cue. And then when I go to do the offs, I would go ahead, you know, move to one of these, move to the next one, you know, set up whatever I wanted to do. Say I wanted to just take everything at 0, turn it off, and then I would go and I would record 16 plus 18 plus 20, blah, 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 blah. You know, I'd grab all those cues that say off, and then there's a couple things I would do. One, I would hit merge in case of conflict, and then I would hit cue only, and then I would hit enter. And what that does is it makes it so that that command, in terms of tracking, in terms of what comes from the previous cues to the next cues, doesn't disrupt future cues. So basically 16, 15 here, it's on, then it's off, then it's on. Okay, and I created on here on 15, and so it was tracking all the way through. Everything was on through 27 here, 28. And if I use cue only when I record these offs in, then the console will record in on again, off, on again, off. And so you don't have to go in and touch all of those. That saves a good bit of time. Okay, what else did I do a lot of? Let's see. Really, when it comes down to it, timecode programming is cool. It's something that I haven't done a ton in the past. And it's really cool because it's like you get to ahead of time, rehearse and go over and over and over again this complex piece of music and play back your cues again and again and get them just perfect. And so that's the cool thing about it, is you can sit in here and, you can just be playing your music along and you can scroll through. Oops. And you find your various parts of your song, and again, it looks better in person. We'll make sure we have some video of that. Well, that must be a bug in Time Lord. And you scroll through, you can look at all your stuff, and if timing's not quite perfect, you can go in, pause it here, go, oh, I just need to be in edit mode, click in my timecode here, type in my new timecode time. Now, big tip here, the format is hours, minutes, seconds, frames. I always thought you had to type in an hours value, even though, like, for this, it's 20 minutes that starts at 0 time. So there's no hours value ever. Turns out it actually comes from frames upward. So, for example, if you just type 12:54:3, it doesn't worry about hours. It kind of works in the reverse way. It doesn't work left to right, it works right to left, if that makes sense. So anyways, just a couple keystrokes. I'm a big fan, if anyone who's learned from me knows, of saving a couple keystrokes, doing something a little more efficiently, especially if it's something you're going to do a lot. Okay, and so really what I did is I went through, first time I went through, just program the big feel, program colors, program the general feel. Don't worry about all the minute details. We'll go back, hit those next time. Second time through, get some of the details in places where I very obviously needed a fade or a longer fade. I would go enter that in the fade column, done. Okay. Then last but not least, I program, everything, positions, color, even intensity levels and effects. I program them all into presets. And that's important to do when you're in a console like Onyx, because I'm doing this from the comfort of my office, but I'm going to go on site, and get some video here. And when I'm on site, we're going to play this thing, and the colors might be off, okay? They'll probably be right because I used my show file from last year, but say I didn't have a show file with these fixtures before. The colors would be off. The positions are most certainly going to be off, even though, again, I scraped them from last year's. But if the folks who are setting up the lights don't set them up exactly in the same position as last time, there's going to be some updates to make there. Okay, so what the presets enable you to do is use these simple position presets and be able to update all the cues later when you update that preset. Okay, guys, and then the other thing I learned, I know this is getting longer for a video, is I spent a lot of time using DyLOS. These guys really like some good video across their waterfall. And so making use of a couple things in DyLOS that we talk about here on the channel occasionally. I have a full course on DyLOS inside of Learn Stage Lighting Labs as well. And there's a couple things I use a lot. One, as you can see here, there's a color palette assigned to this look here. So there's all these different color palettes in here, including you can make your own, and that recolors the media. Okay, so we use those a lot. I also have two zones on top of each other, and then later we're going to take this to the next level, and they have a bunch of LED pixels that they want to include. And so I'm going to copy these two zones and have a set of zones for those pixels as well. And I'm going to clone those so that they start out with all the same programming, and then we can tweak them as need on site. These two zones are on top of each other so that when we want to, we can fade one in, fade out the other, do a nice crossfade in the queue, or, you know, go out completely, come back in, etc. And then last but not least, I know this is a lot, but in DyLOS a lot of times, and we should do more DyLOS content in the future, it's just hard to find time, but we've got it in the labs, is the generators can really help you a lot because they allow you to have the background. If you do the opacity here, and I know this is in the manual, I put it there, but have the background be opaque, which means it happens on top of the lights and shine and allows the color from the regular parameter to shine through. It makes an overlay, like an overhead transparency. And that can create some really great effects because you're not just going, oh, you know, bring this fader up and replace whatever was on the waterfall. But it's like, no, just change the flow of the music a little, add some action to it, but don't get rid of what was there. Don't disassociate it fully. Make it build on what was there before. All right. So with that said, guys, thanks so much for watching. Again, this video sponsored by Visit Southern Idaho Tourism. If you like this video, if you like programming and timecode and this show looks cool, definitely check out ShoShone Falls. It's a really cool natural waterfall. I think they said it's taller than Niagara Falls. And just Idaho in general, a lot of hiking. It's just beautiful out there. I definitely, before I went there the first time with these guys, I didn't realize how cool Idaho was. I thought it was just potatoes. With that, guys, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks.